Thank you very much, Khenpo, for your truly wonderful teaching. Next, we will move on to the second session, Q&A session. This session will last about 20 minutes to half an hour at most. If any of you have specific questions or doubts, please feel free to ask them now.
Hello, I am from China Construction Bank. I have truly benefited a lot from the teacher's explanation. As a company ourselves, especially in the financial industry, the competition is extremely fierce. If I may, I'd like to ask a practical question. The whole market pie is only so big, but there are many competing banks out there. We are clearly one of the various parties actively sharing a relatively small portion of that pie. In this situation, if we work hard, we might be able to get a bigger share of the pie. But if we don't strive for it, our share of the pie will become very small. What is your view on this issue? Please give your advice.
Actually, in today's business society, fierce competition, such as what we often see in this environment, is a normal phenomenon. But while we continually strive and work very hard, we should seek to act with sincere integrity and compete in a fair and reasonable manner throughout our work and daily interactions with others involved. If you do not rely on any illegal or improper means and strive with a sincere sense of responsibility toward your company and your organization, always being mindful of the impact your actions have on those around you. From a Buddhist perspective, there is nothing unreasonable about maintaining such a conscientious attitude as it aligns with the values of integrity and ethical conduct. Moreover, as a true business person, whether it's your own company or organization, you should treat it as your own and work diligently and carefully with the right mindful attitude toward your work and duties. Of course, the best goal is that in the future, whether through making money or other means, the development of a business is not just about earning good profits for oneself, but also about giving back to society at the same time. In the future, by steadily relying on the growth of the business, we aim to help and support many people in need. It is very necessary to act with such an intention and under such a premise.
Homage to Khenpo. I am taking this valuable opportunity thanks to the seminar. Today I am merely just an auditor here. Since no one else has spoken or shared yet, I'd really like to take this chance to share my honest feelings and thoughts with you. Because I have always been following you, Khenpo, and have carefully studied your courses. First, I would like to confess to you that I have not studied well. But after carefully studying your courses for these past few years, I have indeed gained something valuable. In your current teachings, you always emphasize that people should have compassion for others and the society, that everyone should offer a bit of love. With a pure mind comes a pure land. This spirit of spreading the Dharma that you embody, keep inspiring us truly and genuinely, and really make us want to do things just like you do. However, during my studies, I have encountered many conflicts and have not managed them well. So sometimes I feel quite conflicted inside. Because before I studied Buddhism, I didn't care about cause and effect. I just went ahead and did good deeds. But now, after learning, when I start to observe cause and effect, I feel like I lack a bit of that courage. I asked Khenpo for guidance on what I should do.
I personally think whether we study Buddhism deeply or not, having a good conscience and a truly kind heart is, at the very least, extremely important for everyone we encounter each day. Generally speaking, in today's complex society around us, people with kind hearts may not appear to be very successful on the surface. Sometimes they often face setbacks both internally and externally. There are even times when we notice that some people around us who are unkind and even wicked end up being successful and seem to have a lot of good fortune instead. Such phenomena do indeed exist, but we really shouldn't worry too much about them, because the evil they commit now will eventually become their suffering in the future. The happiness they have now is the result of good deeds they did in the past. Therefore, in this process, whether you are practicing Buddhism or doing other good deeds, you will often encounter conflicts, contradictions, and resistance. This is a normal phenomenon, especially when doing good deeds. We often say, when the path is raised by a foot, the demon rises by 10. There is such a saying. So when doing positive and meaningful good deeds, whether from your family or from society, there will definitely be pressures and challenges from all sides and from different directions, but I think we should follow our conscience. Try our best to observe things with a very meticulous wisdom. We must persist, even if we can only do a little bit. For example, out of the 360 days in a year, you should think about doing good deeds a few times. Or doing 12 good deeds in 12 months of the year, for example, is also perfectly reasonable and understandable. So people don't have a plan for doing good deeds for themselves. Every day, they are just muddling through in a daze. Aside from working hard for their own families, it seems like they haven't done anything else. In the end, when you leave this world, if you have the chance to look back on your life, I'm afraid you'll find you gained nothing at all. So I think things don't necessarily have to be grand or significant, but you should at least try to do a certain number of good deeds in your life, and you must definitely have this intention. This is very important.
Hello, Khenpo. Let me ask you another question. I often do bad things with good intentions. Should I repent for that?
Doing bad things with good intentions, huh? If your heart is kind and everything you do is good, it's still okay to repent.
Hello, Master. It's like this. My wife believes in Buddhism, we have a Buddhist altar at home, and we often release animals. As for myself, I don't have any resistance to Buddhism. Moreover, Buddhism encourages people to be kind and seek truth, but sometimes I have a certain feeling. For example, when I accompany my wife to release animals, at first I feel pretty good about it. But during the animal release, there are a lot of rituals, and after a while, I get really irritable. Because of this, I often have some conflicts with my family. Also, since we have a Buddhist altar at home, my wife has certain expectations. At home, they want us to dress more formally, especially in the summer since it's quite hot. Sometimes I like to wear casually with lighter clothing on. So my wife sometimes reminds me, saying there are bodhisattvas inside. So these are the two issues. First, during the animal release, sometimes I can be a bit impatient, though of course going is a good thing. Second, at home, my wife sometimes asks me to recite the Great Compassion Mantra or the Heart Sutra, but I've never recited them. I feel like as long as I have it in my heart, that's enough. So I'd like to ask the Master during the process of animal release, how can I calm my mind and not be so impatient? Second, how should I get along with my wife? For example, my wife offers incense every morning and evening. Thank you, Master.
Actually, I personally think that fully believing in Buddhism or taking refuge in the Buddha is a natural process over time. Buddhism never forces anyone to believe at all, but for Buddhists, some family members are very supportive and understanding. Some family members are more opposed, even extremely so toward the practice. From my personal perspective, I believe that true Buddhism is actually a very positive and uplifting form of education. So if your family is interested in this particular aspect and they support you, that is truly a very good thing. Of course, there are certain behaviors like if animal release ceremonies take a long time, or if, because of the Buddha hall at home, everyone in the family has different opinions or values, and this should be considered completely normal and understandable. Actually, for animal release ceremonies, there are also relatively simple rituals. I often say, in summer or when time is especially short in your schedule, a simple ritual is quite enough. If you have a Buddha hall at home, usually you can just simply cover it with a curtain when not in use. Because at home, it's not like in a monastery where things are more structured, where there are so many rules. Maybe one person believes in Buddhism and another doesn't, so conflicts are inevitable. In this regard, Buddhism actually has many open-minded and accommodating aspects. But for those who are just starting to learn Buddhism, they might be thinking this isn't allowed, that isn't allowed. If so, there could be a lot of conflicts among family members. Actually, it's not just about beliefs. Even within a family, if two people have different hobbies or personal interests, generally speaking, you might not notice it at first. But as time goes on, and as you spend more time together, there will be many ideological differences that gradually emerge between each other. For example, I once saw a situation where, at night, one person insisted on making porridge, while the other said, "No, we shouldn't make porridge, we should eat dry rice." Then they argued over this issue, and in the end, both of them committed suicide. So sometimes it's very difficult for family members to reach complete agreement. I think in the future, we must try to understand each other. That's also a good way. And just now, you mentioned that as long as you have Buddha in your heart, that's enough. Of course, from a broad perspective, you could say that. But if someone uses this phrase as a justification for everything, that's not reasonable. Nowadays, many people think, as long as I have Buddha in my heart, that's enough. But whether there really is Buddha in one's heart is also hard to say, because having Buddha in your heart is a rather high state of realization. For example, in this world, people don't think having love in one's heart is enough. It is not necessary to express it through every ritual or every word. Having love in your heart alone does not guarantee that things in this world will necessarily be accomplished. So I think when all the right conditions eventually come together for us in the future, even though we may yearn for Buddha in our hearts, in our actions and in many other important aspects in our everyday lives, we also need to understand the true wisdom of the Buddha. When this wisdom is put into practice in our everyday actions, that is truly a demonstration of having Buddha in one's heart.
Hello, Khenpo. I am from the Jilin branch of China Construction Bank. I would like to ask a question. There is someone named Lina, who is a well-known singer. I really enjoy listening to her songs as they are very beautiful and moving. After she became a Buddhist, she sang and recorded a song called Namo Amitabha Buddha, which reflects her spiritual beliefs. After listening to this song, I felt very calm and peaceful in my heart. Another feeling I had was a subtle, faint sense of sadness and loneliness. When I listen to Lina singing, it seems as if her worldly attachments are not quite yet over. That's the feeling I personally get from her voice. I wonder if Lina is happy now.
You put it very well. In fact, Lina was the one who performed the song called Walking into Tibet. It should be said that she is quite famous, and many people enjoy listening to her songs. Later, when she became a nun, many people were very happy, but there were also many who were especially saddened by it. They felt that the path she chose was not a wise one at all. Later, after she went to the United States, I also saw many photos of her and learned a little bit about her personal situation back then. I once wrote a book called Buddha's Light in the Mortal World. In it, I specifically wrote about some current well-known pop singers and celebrities in show business, and how they came to believe in Buddhism. Among them, I also mentioned Lina's early experience of becoming a nun. I wrote about that part as well. Later, I eventually learned that she was in a temple in the United States. At first, she and her mother had their own ideas and didn't want to give in to each other. Her mother was especially opposed to her, but Lina still wanted to become a nun. Every time, the two of them would end up holding each other and crying for a long time. But later on, her mother gradually came to accept it. Now, in the temple there, she tries not to accept any outside interviews anymore. There was a journalist who asked her many questions from a personal perspective about her past. In the end, she said that she felt she hadn't really left the secular world, that she was still living among ordinary people. But she openly admitted that her previous life in the show business was truly a waste of her life, in her own words. It was only after she became a nun that she truly found her own path in life. So she feels that her choice was indeed very wise and that she is truly very happy. These are her own words.
Khenpo, hello. It is a great honor to have this opportunity to receive your teachings today. I am from Tianjin, and I am also a disciple who has taken refuge in Buddhism. I don't have a deep understanding of Buddhist studies, so I'd like to ask you a question. I usually enjoy reciting the Heart Sutra and the Great Compassion Mantra. Sometimes I recite them at night, but I end up falling asleep during the recitation. Some people say that's not okay, that you must dedicate the merit afterwards. I want to ask, is it all right if I fall asleep while reciting sutras?
Not only is it good to fall asleep while reciting sutras, it's even better if you die during the recitation. Just now in the car, I heard about a monk who currently studies at our Buddhist academy. His mother, who lives in the northeast region, is a devoted Buddhist practitioner with strong faith. She was in a temple prostrating to the Buddha and had completed 3 prostrations. According to the footage from the surveillance camera, after the 3rd prostration, she continued to remain kneeling for a brief moment and passed away right there. At the time, her child was a bit heartbroken and didn't dare to watch the footage from the camera. I said, there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, it's extremely auspicious. When a person passes away, if they leave in a very peaceful and calm, virtuous state of mind, that's actually a very good thing in many ways. Even when we go to sleep each night, we shouldn't be overly sad in our hearts with negative thoughts. If you fall asleep while feeling especially sad or resentful, you might have nightmares. But if you recite sutras like the Heart Sutra or the Great Compassion Mantra, this kind of peacefulness, as I mentioned earlier, listening to the gentle and soothing chants of Amitabha Buddha, or even songs by people like Lina, or anyone singing, being in that kind of state, even if you don't have any religious faith. In fact, many of the various sounds and unique environments in Buddhism, as well as the content of the sutras, can often give people a sense of relaxation and tranquility. In fact, society today is very restless and especially painful. So just a couple of days ago, when I was speaking at another school, I said that even in the morning when you wake up, just sitting quietly for a moment and resting a bit, as Buddhism talks about meditation, and even at night before going to sleep, just settling your mind a little, letting your mind become a bit more peaceful. This is actually very helpful for health preservation and extremely beneficial for your physical well-being. And it's also very helpful for gently cleansing and thoroughly purifying the mind. So whether it's in the sound of Buddhist chanting or Buddhist music, if you do this when you sleep or as you go about your daily activities, your mind won't be so restless or unsettled, and you may find greater peace and tranquility throughout your day. At such times, whatever you do will also be much more efficient. So I think this is really good, to be honest.
Hello, Master. I am from Jilin Province Construction Bank. I have a question. I have a friend, and she is a deeply devout Buddhist who sincerely practices the Pure Land School. She often watches many of Master Jinkong's Dharma teaching videos. During this year's Spring Festival, Master Jinkong gave a special Spring Festival teaching. He said that starting from December 20th in the year 2012, there would be a major disaster occurring on Earth lasting for 3 days. Then she sent me the link to this particular video and asked me to watch it carefully. You also just mentioned the issue of disasters. I would like to ask you to give a more detailed teaching on this. Thank you.
I have also personally heard that Master Jinkong specifically mentioned this year. Many people are quite afraid of 2012. Actually, I think Master Jinkong may have some deeper meaning behind his words. In Buddhism, we say there are, for instance, other reasons. So what are these reasons? Perhaps it's to give people a wake-up call, to remind everyone to do good. Otherwise, if something like what was described in 2012 actually happens in reality, then it would indeed be quite troublesome for everyone involved. Maybe that's the idea. Of course, what Master Jinkong said is not just about this particular time. I also heard that back around 1999. Nostradamus' The Great Prophecies also mentioned it at the time, that in 1999, humanity might face destruction or a great catastrophe. At that time, Master Jinkong also spoke about this in detail on several different occasions. Later, a very small number of people even slandered the Venerable Master. Honestly, I'm not really sure what his deeper intentions or motivations were either. But overall, because 2012 is something people are still very concerned about nowadays, this marks the end of the Mayan civilization. But the Mayan elders also carefully analyzed this in their own unique way, based on Mayan history. They said it was just one phase for them. In fact, their history never explicitly stated that humanity would end at this time at all. Within their own traditional ethnic culture, it's just a segment in the middle. There is still more to come, and survival is possible. So I think, although the impact of 2012 was significant, including what Master Jinkong said, the government also paid considerable attention to such statements. But overall, in my understanding, it should serve as a reminder for people not to accumulate too much negative karma. Otherwise, on December 21st, 2012, could something like this happen? That might be the intended meaning. Otherwise, at that time, there could also be various opposing voices. Therefore, generally speaking, it's generally more appropriate to explain some objective truths in a calm and peaceful manner.
Hello, Master. I am from Tianjin. Today, I want to ask, how does Buddhism prove hell exists? Since I have studied Buddhism, I know causes and conditions are necessary. With the Master's blessings, one must practice meditation to gain true vision. However, not everyone necessarily has this kind of karmic connection. For example, through Buddhist logic, I heard that by using the 7-step reasoning, one can deduce the real existence of hell, but I didn't fully learn it. For example, first, all humans must die. This I agree with. Second, the time of death is uncertain. We don't know when we will die, some sooner, some later. I didn't fully learn the later steps in the reasoning. I hope the Master can give some guidance on this today. Thank you.
You want to use Buddhist logic to deduce the existence of hell, right? Actually, regarding hell, yesterday somewhere, someone gave me a fascinating book called A Journey to Hell. Hell is not something we can truly perceive with our eyes right now, nor can we completely deduce it just from reading books. But in reality, it does indeed exist. Someone who has never been to prison may not acknowledge its existence, but those who are more familiar with prisons are certainly well aware of them. So in Tibetan Buddhism and Chinese Han Buddhism, many people have gained entry into hell through supernatural powers, and there are quite a few such travelogues and accounts. Moreover, in written texts nowadays, there is the concept of the 6 realms of reincarnation. Within the 6 realms of reincarnation, the Buddhist scriptures also explain them. The human realm and the animal realm are things we can see with our eyes. As for the hell realm, how it is formed after committing evil deeds, there are descriptions of this in Buddhism. Of course, according to the well-established Buddhist philosophical reasoning of Buddhist logic, one must first establish that the language of the Buddhist scriptures is true and unfailing, and set up such an acceptance. After that, the existence of hell and heaven as spoken by the Buddha is then further argued and demonstrated. So, this is a step-by-step process. It's not as if we have no understanding at all of what is happening. For example, consider someone who has never been to North America at any point in their life. I'm about to say this now. If North America exists, you should use a form of reasoning to explain it to me. But if the written information is incomplete, or if you are unclear about many principles, then it can be somewhat difficult to understand at once. However, the reasoning behind the existence of hell, through the Agama Sutras, for example, and the 10 Grounds Sutra, as well as the Ksitigarbha Sutra and others, these sutras and treatises provide the reasoning as the basis. And who said this? It was Shakyamuni Buddha who said it. What Shakyamuni Buddha said from the time he taught until now: has there ever been a single false statement or a single lie at any point? Whether in science or in the world, there is simply absolutely no evidence whatsoever that he ever lied. So, through such reasoning, we ultimately arrive at the conclusion that hell exists. This is acceptable. Another point, when we commit negative actions, we will face their painful consequences. Wrongdoing brings legal punishment. This infers things using worldly logic.
Today's Q&A session has now come to an end. Just as Khenpo said at the end of the lecture just now, all the exchanges we had here today and all the teachings the teacher gave us are truly valuable and meaningful. As we look back on the discussion shared, let us take a moment to reflect on what we have learned and experienced together during this session. It may not necessarily be able to transform this society or this country, nor may it bring any significant substantial changes to everyone's daily work or family life in practice. But as long as through today's event, we gradually come to understand Buddhism in the future and are able to open a door in each of our hearts toward truth and goodness, then we all truly believe that our future society and our families will certainly continue to improve and become better and better. Now, I would like to once again invite everyone to stand up and give a round of applause to Khenpo. Today's event concludes here. Thank you all for really participating.